So are the toxic effects of solar and wind limited to lack of safety and disposal of panels and blades? No. The toxicity is in their production and function as well. So rare earth metals, also called rare earths, are mined to create rare earth magnets essential to sophisticated electronics like our cell phones and computers, and also solar and wind power. So when we consider the process of mining rare earth metals, we're talking about mining required for solar and wind power sources. There was an article that I read August 19th, it was Associated Press, Myanmar bears cost of green energy, the country below China. It says mining of rare earths causes environmental damage. And it got me studying more about this. So they're used in electronics and cell phones, from cell phones to trains, especially key to green energy is what they talked about in the article. Electric cars, batteries, wind turbines, generators. So I consider that the more that I studied, I consider it, I don't know if you folks saw the kind of gruesome movie Blood Diamond, but I consider what they're doing with the mining over there in Myanmar, in Mongolia, in the Congo, to be the Blood Diamond money colonial business model. And this was in that article by the Associated Press. The birds no longer sing, the fish no longer swim, the cost of rare earths is environmental destruction, the theft of land from villagers, and the funneling of money to brutal militias. They had a takeover of that government in 2021 by brutal militias, and that's what's running this. If the people complain, they too face the threat of death. So this is what is required for us to have green energy. Lithium mining and disposal is exploitive of workers and the environment the same way. Misuses water. Extracting a ton of lithium requires 500,000 gallons of water. And the preferential allotment of it to this mining destroys farming. Depletes water resources. Surface water contamination contributes to acid mist and fluorine gas, water table reduction, excessive water evaporation to concentrate the brine. So remember, they were always talking about the Amazon and the acid rain, and it's ruining the forests and all this kind of thing. Well, we got that action going there. So depletes fertile soil, causes soil erosion, removes trees and green plants, destroys habitats and minerals that plants require to grow, contaminates local water with sulfuric acid, uranium, and other things. It's a terrible hazard to humans and animals, respiratory illness, death. You're inhaling cobalt. So it requires fossil fuels for heavy machinery and roads that are required for the processes. So manufactured electric car, it might have a net negative impact on carbon emissions once it's already built, but metal extraction required for their batteries is carbon intensive, and their charging stations require hydroelectric or fossil fuels. This truck, he's probably not a small man. It's a Cat 994H. It burns 1,800 gallons of fuel in a 12-hour shift. The machine is required to move 500,000 pounds of earth in order to get the minerals needed for one single Tesla battery. In whose world does this type of math and Green New Deal make sense? Clean and green? Here's some examples. Doesn't look clean and green to me, and they're using a whole lot of petrol. This is a lithium leach field. On a hot day, want to dip in or drink some of that? I mean, this is disgusting. So there's a prediction there's going to be 125 million electric vehicles in the United States by 2030. And what is the cost of production and maintenance? Production costs, ecosystem unfriendly, as I described, practices of mining lithium and rare earths, also the cost of their disposal that we talked about. Maintenance costs, requires hydroelectric and fossil fuels to charge batteries requiring mining. So the purpose of describing these problems with solar and wind is not to dismiss them as unviable, but to demonstrate they cannot provide what we need, and they are not environmentally friendly, not at all, and to provide evidence for an agenda that is not in our best interests. The hypocrisy is over the top. While I was making my slides for this and I was looking up photos, there was an article that it was about something, I think it was in Brazil, and they were having a big deal about some, one little road that was made illegally, and they were saying how it's going to impact the rainforest and all this kind of stuff. Look at these roads. Look at that. Yeah. I mean, this is for the rare earth mining that goes into green energy. And you can kind of see, well, there's still a little bit of green back there. That's what this used to look like. Here's another one. Look at the size of that. I mean, if you look down here and you look at some of the vehicles, you look at that. I guess that doesn't, you look at that, this is huge. They're taking over the world. And again, beautiful green, that's what that used to look like before they took over. And this is what coal mining, those kind of things, they can look kind of like this too, but we talk about that. The ones that are for the Green Deal talk about that. They never talk about this. And I've actually, in the United States, I've never seen mining that looks this bad. And to my knowledge, they don't exploit children. This is rare earth mining in Mongolia. The guy is just covered with the radioactive and other poisons that's how he's making a living. These men produce oil for my diesel truck. These children produce the lithium for your electric car. That's in the Congo. And there are videos of these children and young adults being beaten by their taskmasters, like in the movie Blood Diamond. So is the popularized push for solar and wind power, is it designed for them to fail? They cannot serve our needs. They give a false hope of effectiveness and safety to the uninformed, and that's part of the deceiver's strategy. They also encourage flight from sustainable sources of power and water that are plentiful throughout the world, and especially in Montana. So the law of conservation of energy can be neither created nor destroyed, but it may be transformed one form to another. All sources of energy have equal unfriendly byproducts, sources of waste, toxic pollutants, and so forth. What would a truly green motor vehicle look like? I don't know if y'all remember the Flintstones. Some of you are old enough to remember that, but Yabba Dabba Doo, or was that Yogi Bear? I don't remember. But anyway, they used to pedal this thing with their feet. I mean, that's really the only green vehicle you're ever going to find is something that you can maybe pedal with your feet. So all sources of energy have risks and benefits. It's not an all or none phenomenon. Solar, wind, and electric cars are romanticized. We know that, and the problems are kept from the citizens. Risks of hydrocarbon use are exaggerated without taking into account the benefits that I'm going to talk a little bit about later. There's no free lunch. There's an example. See the mousetrap with the cheese? There's no free lunch. So unraveling Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, it's also known as Pork Barrel Enslavement Act and Life and Liberty Reduction Act. So why are subsidies needed for green power sources and electric vehicles? Because they come at great cost and they're not sustainable. Kind of obvious. And they don't fill our needs, people. They make absolutely no sense from any standpoint. And 20 years and $5 trillion later in government subsidies and investments in solar and wind sources of power, oil, natural gas, and coal still provide 84% of all the world's energy. And that's only down 2% in the last 20 years after, trillions and trillions of dollars put into it. The stuff doesn't work. Oil still provides 97% of global transportation, even though they've tried and they've, tried to bolster this up and pay for it. And so sun and wind are renewable, but the processes of production, utilization, and disposal of solar and wind energy, those are not renewable. Solar and wind power cannot provide what we need, require hydrocarbons or hydroelectric for production and function. Production, use, and disposal is harmful to the environment and people. So what are we doing? What would award-winning American economist and statistician Milton Friedman say about these subsidies for green energy were he still alive? I sure like this guy. The government solution to a problem is usually as bad as the problem. That's a quote from him. We have a system that increasingly taxes work and subsidizes non-work. Nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program. So-called infant industries protected by the government never grow up. He was the best. Okay, well there it is, a gas generator being used to charge the dead battery in an electric car. My day is complete. To all the green people with green cars, this is an electric charging station powered by a diesel motor. This is my favorite. A gas-powered van towing a diesel generator charging an electric car. The future is stupid. Are those pushing energy from solar and wind unintelligent, mentally incompetent? Are they on drugs, psychoactive drugs? What is going on here? Some of them, sure. But many good, intelligent folks are being deceived. They're driven and blinded by emotion and feelings. They're embracing sound bites from celebrities instead of pursuing depth of knowledge. Isn't that our education system? They're incapable of critical thinking. It's not encouraged They don't seem capable. So what about the designers, the ones in charge and other beneficiaries in this fake crisis? Do these extremely wealthy and powerful people know what they're doing? The issue of competence or lack thereof of these individuals, it depends on their goal. What's their goal? If the goal of the Green New Deal is to provide enough clean energy to eco-safely take care of mankind's needs, it's a big fail, right? But maybe that's not their agenda. What if the goodness of mankind and environment is not their goal? Is that possible? What could make this blood diamond colonial model of business worthwhile, if not to help humanity, as it exploits men, women, children, and land? So winners in the new Green Deal, it's the same as in the COVID debacle. Multinational corporation and the power of central banks. Those were the main winners in COVID-19. They're the main winners in this as well. COVID-19 rollout, it was the greatest transfer of wealth and power in the history of mankind. I think it'll be eclipsed by the rollout of the Green New Deal. Accomplished by a series of fake crises and the gullibility of we the people to succumb to manufactured fear in response to carefully constructed lies. Fake energy crisis based on a fake climate change crisis. The data does not support catastrophic predictions that have been made for the last 50 years. I mean, they've been predicting catastrophic climate change, we're going to burn up. It's basically going to be as hot as hell, or it's going to be hell. They've been saying that since the 1970s, people. For 50 years they've been saying it. First it was global warming, and then it started getting cooler, so they said global cooling, and then they said, okay, we'll just leave it at climate change. It's a little bit safer. In the 1970s and 1980s, I mean, the predictions, they were based on computer models. Remember the computer models of COVID that were used to shut down the world? So all this, the horrible catastrophic things that were going to happen to us based on climate were also based on models. And they said, if we don't slash hydrocarbon use like now, we'll be out of oil by 1992, natural gas by 1993, there will be uninhabitable pollution. We're going to be wearing gas masks if we're still alive. If we haven't burnt to a crisp. There's going to be mass climate-related deaths and other climate catastrophes. The United Kingdom is going to be gone by 1990. And there's going to be just hellish heat. So the veritable opposite has occurred despite a large increase in the use of fossil fuels. When they told us to use less, we used more. That's what we did. And it's arguably because of increased fossil use that there's increased life expectancy in India and China over those 50 years, decreased climate-related deaths by like 98%, increased reserves of oil and gas. Because when we talk about reserves, I mean, we have the ingenuity and reliability to go and find these. Maybe it's limited, the amount that's there, but our ingenuity and our technology, we are able to get more of it. So the reserves, the usable oil and coal and gas has actually increased in those 50 years. So when they talk about renewable, when they talk about reserves, it's actually gone up. And improved quality of air and material life. I mean, I don't think our spiritual lives and social lives are better, but in terms of material life, it has. I mean, everybody has a cell phone, most people have a TV. We have all these wonderful things, and throughout the world, so many people in these impoverished countries have been brought out of poverty. So really nobody, in the last 50 years, because of hydrocarbons as a source of fuel, it's actually what has brought people out of poverty and given us all these wonderful little things, these toys that we like so much. And the quality of air is actually better than it was. And I've looked at photos of some of the coal mining. I mean, it's been made very clean, especially over in Wyoming. I think I put a picture in here of that. So why the improvements with use of fossil fuels? There's an author, Alex Epstein, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. I highly recommend that. Fossil Future, that one came out more recently. It's a larger book. It has a lot more information. It has really pretty much everything that the 2014 book has. But I just like the title, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, because the man, as far as I could tell, I haven't done a lot of research on him, but as far as I could tell, he's a secular humanist. He's not a religious man, but he places mankind as at the top of the heap. And he says that that is the most important thing, and that is where our moral, if you place your moral value in human beings, if that's your number one, whether it's because it's the pinnacle of God's creation or whether it's because you're a secular humanist, you're placing humans at the top. And when you do that, you're wanting to have sources of fuel that are going to allow people to improve their standard of living, right? So he makes a great case for it. And human ingenuity and technology, free market and crony capitalism, resourcefulness and financial and humanitarian incentives, all that is why, with the use of fossil fuels, we have been able to improve the standard of life for ourselves and for others.